Hey guys, welcome to my channel and happy spooky season. I'm sure a lot of people are going to argue the matter and say that it is not yet spooky season, but I beg to differ and I think it's always at least slightly spooky season, but August to me definitely is kind of a start of fall, or at least the breakaway from summer to fall. It's close enough for me. If it's not for you, that's fine, but it is for me. And fall brings forth a lot of exciting things to me. I get more motivated to rewatch a lot of my favorite horror franchises. The Halloween stores start popping up. Spirit Halloweens haunt the ghosts of former stores that once existed. Stores just get all their Halloween sections, the air turns cooler, and life just ultimately gets better. And it's just a great time to be alive. I love it. One thing I especially like to do around spooky season is rewatch a lot of my horror favorites. Obviously I'm a fan of them all year round, but there's just something special about rewatching them during the intended season. Recently Netflix has put back on the Child's Play franchise, all except the first one because that was under a different thing. But Child's Play 2 through Cult of Chucky was on Netflix, and so I recently got re-inspired to rewatch the whole franchise, and so today I thought it would be fun to give my opinion and my ranking on all of the Child's Play movies. That is what we're going to be doing today. Obviously Chucky is here for the process. You can't really see him, but we all know he's there. So before this video starts, I did just want to give a disclaimer that I will be featuring my opinions in this video, and the funny thing about opinions is we're all entitled to our own. So if I rank a movie really low that is your absolute favorite, you know, that's okay. I'm not personally attacking you and your bloodline by not having the same favorite movie as you. These are all just my opinions. So obviously the Child's Play / the Chucky franchise is one that is very special to a lot of people, and it's one that's really just lasted throughout the years. Like if I say Chucky, people are still going to know who I'm talking about now. He's kind of just a horror icon at this point. Even if you're not hugely involved with the horror genre, I feel like everyone at least knows who Chucky is if I'm gonna say Chucky. You know, he's the killer doll, he's an icon, and we love him. I also sort of just love the representation that this franchise has given people in the LGBTQ+ community and stuff, since the, you know, writer, director of the majority of the Chucky movies, Don Mancini himself, is gay, so he put a lot of his own personal life experiences into his films. There's been a lot of inclusivity within his characters, and I think that is something that makes it so special, at least for people like me. But there's also just a lot of enjoyable kills and moments throughout the whole franchise for various different types of people to enjoy. The first movie was released in 1988, with the newest in the movie franchise being 2017, and of course the Chucky series, which was developed for like the Sci-Fi channel in 2021. Truly a franchise that's just withstood the test of time. Also, I'm not going to be including the 2019 remake in this because to me that's just not Chucky, that's not part of this franchise. And a lot of the people who worked on this initial Chucky franchise were openly against the 2019 remake because at the time they were trying to produce the TV show and they didn't know if this new film, which would have made people think this is Chucky and take away the attention from the television series, which I am very grateful that it didn't, because I think the show is really good. And I like the 2019 Chucky as a standalone movie. I think the concept of like AI taking over is interesting. I'm glad they kind of re-explored that concept through Megan, but that movie just wasn't Chucky to me, not a part of that franchise. The whole point is Chucky is a killer doll, not a killer robot. Let's get into the rankings. We are going to be ranking them pyramid style, with obviously my least favorite being bottom of the pyramid and my favorite being top of the pyramid. So what's my notifications?
One notification from Amazon shopping. A shipment has arrived.
Oh my god, my shipment has arrived. One moment. Alright, we're back. Let's get to the rankings. So there are 7 movies in this franchise, with Child's Play 1, 2, and 3 leading to Bride of Chucky, Seed of Chucky, Curse of Chucky, and Cult of Chucky. Also, I'm going to talk about major plot points in these movies, so if you haven't seen them before, I don't know why you're watching this video, but spoilers. At the bottom of the pyramid for me is Child's Play 3. I still think it was a good movie and I enjoy watching it when I rewatch the whole series, but to me it just wasn't anything new and exciting in the franchise, and I definitely think it happened too quickly, because in actuality it did. Child's Play 3 was released in 1991, which was only a year after Child's Play 2, which obviously was in 1990. And so because of that, this movie was set in 1998 rather than 1991. And obviously, since Alex Vincent, who played Andy in Child's Play 1 and 2, was still a child, his actor was replaced for this movie by Justin Whalen. So, fun fact, this movie sets place just a little bit before the events in Bride of Chucky took place. Don Mancini had to make the screenplay for this movie extremely quickly, and for what it's worth, I still think it turned out okay. It just definitely felt a bit rushed, and I almost wish they actually just waited for Alex Vincent to grow up rather than forcing another sequel right away, because Child's Play 1 and 2 did well. I do like the concept of seeing Andy as a teenager and seeing how the effects of dealing with Chucky in his childhood still affect him, and seeing how the trauma has lasted throughout the time. The military school setting to me is alright. I guess it kind of makes sense for the plot because, you know, Andy was still struggling to cope with all of the doll stuff, and so he was sent somewhere that's supposedly going to, you know, help him get rid of those problems. It was alright, but I feel like a lot of the setting and the characters was just bland to me, and there wasn't a lot of depth to the characters in it. You know, the assholes were just assholes, the nerd was just a nerd, and there wasn't really a lot of anything, really. I think it was kind of cute that they brought in, you know, another child, Tyler, and, you know, did the whole thing where Chucky has the chance to have a fresh victim now that he's in a new body, obviously, since Child Play 2. But if I'm being quite honest, Tyler kind of irritated me throughout the whole thing because he kind of got himself into the mess. He was the one who intercepted Andy's package because he saw it and he decided that he wanted the good guy doll, so he took the good guy doll. Guess what, Tyler? That's not very good guy behavior, and if you intercept someone's packages in the mail, I think you're kind of at fault for the consequences that arise after.
Can't you read? He was supposed to get this package. Tampering with the mail is a federal offense.
I did honestly really like the scene where they did the war games and they were, you know, shooting off the paintball guns, because I thought it was really suspenseful the way that, you know, obviously Chucky swapped the paintballs for live ammunition, and just watching the process of the people realizing, oh shit, that red splatter isn't just paint. It was really exciting to me, and I think the pop-up carnival setup was alright, and it did give me one of my favorite Chucky deaths of the franchise, which was being thrown into the big industrial-sized fan. That was interesting to me, and I really liked that kill-off of Chucky. I think it was one of the more gory and entertaining ones. I like some of the one-liners that were incorporated into this movie, but I think they definitely tried to overdo it a little bit too much. And at this point in the franchise, we already know that Chucky's a killer, we already know that he doesn't like Andy, we already basically know all of the things that were shown to us, so trying to redo the whole voodoo thing just with another kid wasn't exciting or new enough to really make this movie stand out or be one of my favorites on the list. Ultimately, I didn't hate the movie, it just wasn't exciting enough to be any higher up on the pyramid. Next on the pyramid for me is the 1998 Bride of Chucky. This movie served as the introduction to Tiffany Valentine, and obviously she's an iconic character who I love and I stand, and she was undoubtedly an amazing addition to the entire franchise. However, this movie was the first that definitely made the switch to the more comedic tone, and it tried to be more meta. And I honestly only think that worked about half of the time. Some of the things that happened in this movie were genuinely funny, but some of it just felt a bit redundant, like just shut up and let Chucky be a killer, stop trying to be funny, you know? This movie was released after the first two Scream movies were released, which obviously changed the horror industry with the way it did movies. So I understand why Chucky was trying to adapt to the times and be more meta in this, but sometimes it just came off more cringy than what it was supposed to be. Just because it worked for Scream doesn't mean it works for you. I also really strongly dislike the characters of Jade and Jesse, and I didn't feel like they brought anything that exciting to the movie, and I found it hard to root for them as characters because they were just aggravating and annoying, which I feel like they're definitely a large part of why I ranked the movie where I ranked it, just because they were insufferably annoying. Half of the movie was spent watching them fight with each other, have conflicts in their relationship, and blame each other for stupid things. I do think that this movie delivered on interesting kills, however. Like, I love the whole nail gun scene, I liked the waterbed scene, and I absolutely loved when Chucky like blew up the car and flipped off the stoner guy and he's just like, rude fucking doll. That scene honestly lives in my mind, and I don't think that there was a single kill in this movie that I thought was uninteresting. So it definitely delivered in that aspect. I also really enjoyed the argument scene in the RV where Jesse and Jade were kind of talking to Chucky and Tiffany and getting them to find problems in their relationship, which obviously sparked this huge argument between the two of them. That was interesting, and it has some of the most quotable Tiffany moments, and I really liked that. And obviously the whole transformation from Tiffany becoming a human to living in the doll was really interesting too. So all in all, I really enjoyed this movie. Once again, I just enjoyed the other movies a little bit more. Third on the pyramid, I have Seed of Chucky. Similar to Bride of Chucky, this one tried to take a more comedic route, which I think worked some of the time, but not all of the time. And these two movies are honestly about tied for me, but I put Seed of Chucky a little bit higher on the list because Glenn/Glenda holds a special place in my heart. I am going to be just referring to them as Glenn because I'm pretty sure that's what they decided on before, you know, switching into the twins. Seed of Chucky was released in 2004, which for the time it was released, it honestly makes it even more impressive that Don Mancini had a character with the concept of being a non-binary person. You know, obviously Glenn was unsure of who they wanted to be and explored all of the identities possible to them. I really enjoyed the whole Jennifer Tilly and Tiffany Valentine thing throughout this movie though. It's one of my favorite points of this, and that is exactly where my humor stands. Just like when I was a kid and I was watching the episode of The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody where they were doing High School Musical and Maddie was like, oh, they say I look just like the girl who played Sharpay. That was peak comedy to me, and so I kind of love when they do that. And I love how Jennifer was sort of playing a diva version of herself, being Tiffany and all of that. I, however, don't really enjoy the idea that there was a Chucky movie within the Chucky movie and that Chucky and Tiffany were woken up by Glenn as animatronics for the movie. I get some of it was probably intended so they could bring in Jennifer Tilly and, you know, she's like playing Tiffany. And then that's ultimately one of the reasons why Tiffany tries to take over Jennifer Tilly's body is because she looks like Jennifer Tilly or whatever. But I just didn't like the idea of having a movie within the Chucky universe, like a movie of them in the universe. I think it worked for Stab and Scream, but I don't think it worked in Chucky, and I never really remember the movies being all that referenced later on. I think they were referenced in the TV show because Tiffany and Jennifer's body in the show, I think she mentioned, you know, playing in the movies or whatever, but it wasn't hugely mentioned later on, and I think it was just kind of like, honestly, Tiffany could have just found Jennifer Tilly and been like, hey, you kind of look like what I used to look like, I'm taking your body, or just admired her from other roles. I don't think they had to bring in the fact that she canonically played Tiffany in the series. I also really like the kills in this movie though, and I like the way that Chucky and Tiffany both were making attempts to stop for the sake of their child, but obviously realized that killing is their addiction and wanted to continue regardless. I also really didn't like the fact that after literally several movies of desperately trying to evade his doll form, that towards the end of this movie Chucky was just like, you know what, I'm infamous as a killer doll, this is who I am and I love it.
I am Chucky, the killer doll, and I dig it!
I feel like he worked so far and held so much vendetta against people for being stuck in the killer doll body that it seems stupid for him to just give it up like that. Even if he realized he was safer or it was better being in doll form, I just felt like it was a lazy way to keep him as a doll. There were definitely some confusing elements of the movie, but for the most part I liked more than I didn't like. Moving up on the pyramid, we have the initial Child's Play. Obviously I love this movie and it started off the franchise, so it's special. But I put this initial movie where it was because in comparison to some of the other movies, I just like the plot lines of them and the settings of them a little bit more. But obviously they wouldn't exist without. I like how they tried to keep Chucky discreet for the first part of the movie, and like we sort of knew who he was going to be, but we didn't really actually see him do his thing until later on in the movie, and so we gotta kind of make believe with the characters and have a moment of, oh, did Chucky really do that? Alex Vincent is also like the cutest little child actor ever. I think he nailed his role even when it wasn't perfect. It was cute. I also really like the dynamic between Karen and Andy and how much she clearly cared about him, and I kind of wish that Karen was brought back. I know like she was kind of referenced through phone calls and stuff, but we never really saw her face again, and that's kind of... This movie is also one, like, when you watch the whole franchise and then you go back and re-watch this one, it truly shows just how much Chucky was truly just a serial killer. Like, obviously, yeah, he's a killer doll. We know that he's a serial killer. But I feel like when you watch the more comedic ones, it's kind of easy to forget how vile he actually is. Because, not gonna lie, sometimes during the kills in some of the later movies, I'm kind of like, okay, you know? Because he does shitty things. Like in Cult of Chucky, when he possesses Nika and, you know, heel stomps him, it's kind of like, okay, he was a creepy predator guy, kind of, you know, made sense, win for Chucky. But in this first movie especially, it just really showcases how brutal of a killer he was and just really shows more of the serial killer side to him rather than just the like kind of fun, dull serial killer side of him. And he's actually borderline like kind of creepy in the first movie. Next on the list for me is Curse of Chucky, which was released in 2013. I absolutely love Curse of Chucky, and I think that Nika Pierce, like Tiffany Valentine, was an amazing addition to the franchise. And I absolutely love the fact that Fiona Dourif is the voice of Chucky's daughter. I just think that's really cute, and I like how there's a lot of connections in the whole franchise, like even into the TV show, a lot of like the same actors come back and stuff, and it really just seems like one big family, and the cast seems to truly love each other, and I love that. But I think Nika was an amazing character, and I liked how she wasn't just a helpless victim of circumstance, and how she actually tried to fight. Curse of Chucky also was the first movie released after Bride and Seed of Chucky, so this movie kind of just revamped the series and brought back the elements of horror that so many fans, including myself, absolutely loved. And we got the same suspense that we got from the initial Child's Play movie. Like the scene where they had the priest over for dinner and we knew that Chucky poisoned one of the plates, but we weren't entirely sure which one. And you know, even the like camera work and everything, like you're kind of disoriented and you're kind of like, did he poison the little kid? Like what's going on? And a bunch of fake outs, like you're genuinely on the edge of your seat. And once again, it reminds you that Chucky really is a serial killer and he's kind of not a good person, doll. And I also like how they brought back what they did in the initial Child's Play, which is where you didn't really get to see the doll in motion until later on in the movie. I think it really added to an element of suspense because even though you know what's gonna happen, you're kind of once again at the same level of the characters in the movie, just waiting for something to happen. The end bit of this movie with Alice did leave me a little bit confused and just wondering what happened, but that was ultimately cleared up in the next movie. But I just feel like it was a weird ending, you know, being stuck with him with Alice. You're kind of just like, okay. But all in all, I really enjoyed this movie and I love what it did for the franchise. You know, Child's Play 3 didn't do very well, especially compared to the other movies. It was the lowest grossed movie in the franchise, and I think a lot of people were kind of like hesitant after it. And then Bride and Seed came out, and some people liked them, but it was kind of like, some people didn't really like the comedic route that they tried to take, so I really like that Curse of Chucky brought back the elements from the original that people loved and made people start loving it again. Our number 2 on the pyramid is Cult of Chucky. I also really love Cult of Chucky. It's the newest movie in the franchise, released in 2017. And this is one movie that there really wasn't a thing I didn't like about. I love the setting of being in the psychiatric institution. Visually, it's definitely one of my favorite of the whole franchise. I love the, you know, re-edition of Nika Pierce and how this time she's kind of questioning herself and doubting if you know, doubting if Chucky really existed and thinking that she's the one who actually killed those people. I also love how we finally get to see the concept of multiple Chuckies coming to life. This is something that was originally supposed to be brought into some of the previous movies, but they didn't have the budget or the time for. I've heard that it was supposed to be, you know, in Child's Play 3, but because the screenplay was written so quickly, they didn't have the chance to incorporate it. I really love the fact that we got to see it now. And once again, there was a little bit of humor mixed into this movie, but it was definitely more suspenseful. The scene where the multiple Chuckies kind of meet up and they're like, oh, buzzcut Chucky. Like, yeah, you take this kill, you've been through a lot, was absolutely hilarious. I also love the reveal that Andy just had this Chucky head that he was torturing all these years. And I sort of like the mystery behind it, like kind of guessing which Chucky is bad. Is this Chucky possessed? I also really like how Nika was possessed in this one, and it also opened the door for, you know, a lot of the stuff that happens within the series. As I said, there really wasn't a single thing I hated about this movie or didn't really like, so it's confidently going in second place on the pyramid. And the top of the pyramid, the cream of the crop, is Child's Play 2. This is just, I was really torn between Colt and Child's Play 2, but this one just ultimately takes the cake for me. I love rewatching it when I do, and I love how it still has Andy in it as a child, and it's still exploring some of the same themes of the first movie but done a little bit differently. First of all, right off the bat, we know who Chucky is, so we waste no time getting to the kills, and I love the psychological aspect behind it. Like, we know what Chucky did, Andy knows what Chucky did, but nobody else really knows what Chucky did, so we have to feel for Andy and watch as people are gaslighting him into believing what happened to him didn't really happen, and he has to struggle to get people to believe what's happening, because we see Chucky kill the people, but to everybody else, you know, it's weird. Like, admittedly, if you walked in to your husband laying dead in the basement, the only witness there being your foster son, you're gonna think your foster son was at least partially responsible, right? Like, your first thought's not gonna be to the creepy doll he's been blaming all of these mysterious events on. And I think that's a very real aspect of it, and I think it's really exciting to watch. This also started off a couple of the comedic moments, like when Phil died, he's like, how's it hanging? But it definitely didn't try to be overly funny or anything, which I really liked. I also really love this small moment, even where like Andy tries to convince himself that it's not real. You know, he grabs the other doll, Tommy, and he tries to, you know, get over his fear, but obviously Tommy's gone. It's Chucky. I also think it's kind of funny how literally everyone who doesn't believe him winds up dying. Like, Andy was trying his damnedest to warn these bitches, and they didn't believe him, and then suddenly Chucky's standing there ready to kill him, and they're done for. Their last moments alive being like, oh shit, I was... This movie also had some really great improvements from the initial Child's Play, like the scene where Chucky killed Miss Cuttawell. We can see, you know, the ruler he bashed her with, you know, in all of the shots going back. I also absolutely love the sibling dynamic between Kyle and Andy. I think it was really cute, and the factory setting is literally my favorite in the whole franchise. I absolutely love it. I love how we got to see where the good guy dolls were produced, and it opened the door for a lot of creative kills that you don't get to usually see, like the guy literally getting the eyes in his eyes. That was horrifying, and I kind of love, you know, I just love the setting. It was really exciting to watch. This was another movie I also didn't really find a single thing that I really didn't like about it. I thought it was pretty exciting through and through, and it stands as my favorite in the franchise. I always feel weird like not putting the initial as my favorite, but like, because obviously like the others I wouldn't even know if it wasn't for the original, but since I've seen all of them rewatch wise, Child's Play 2 just is the most exciting for me. I love the setting, I love the suspense behind it, and I kind of love being in on it with. But that is going to be all for my opinions on the franchise. Y'all can let me know what you think, what your favorite movie in the franchise is, what y'all think of. And yeah, that is going to be all for this video, and I will see y'all in my next.